All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick will be doing our top 10 Impact True Freshman list in college football. These will be our top 10 guys across the class of 2025 that we think will make impacts right away across the nation. Obviously, there's thousands of guys that are going to new schools, so this is very difficult to come up with, and we could be totally off the mark, but we're going to give it our best shot here today. I'm going to start with a bit of a long shot here in Corey Butler, a wide receiver heading to Arizona State. Three-star guy, ranked pretty low, almost, 1,000th in his recruiting class, 94th ranked receiver out of Centennial, California. I think the reason why he's going to fit in with Arizona State right away is because this team needs help at wide receiver opposite Jordan Tyson. I mean, he got every single target, it seemed. He had an immense amount of production. The transfer from Colorado showed up and was big before the injury. And after that, they still almost beat Texas in the CFP. But moving forward, they're probably going to have to go with a more aerial attack approach this year with Sam Levitt at quarterback, and they're going to need guys to step up. I like what they did in the portal. Brought in Jalen Moss. He's a proven contributor. They picked up Noble Johnson and Jaron Hamilton from Clemson and Alabama, two guys that really haven't made much of an impact so far in their college career. So playing time is going to be up for grabs. Corey Butler, he's going to fit in the slot. That's a big area of need for this offense, is a guy who can be a full-time weapon in the slot. And, I think he'll be able to work his way into this lineup with a good off-season. He has quickness. He has deep speed as well. I think the most important thing is the shiftiness with the ball in his hands means he can be a frequent target when Levitt's getting the ball out quickly. I think Butler's going to make a bit of an impact this year, Nick. I would expect him to be top 4 in receptions and yards. I think this is a major area need for ASU, and the fit makes sense in this recruiting class for him.
If Arizona State wants to get back to college football playoff and wants to win the Big 12 again, they're going to have to find some better pass catchers to be part of this offense. Sam Levitt's got to throw to somebody. No more Cam Scatterboost. They're going to have to rely on throwing the ball a little bit more this year. Jordan Tyson obviously is a phenomenal player to throw to. I think Malik McCain could step up and be solid this year, but they're going to have to find some other pieces to step up. They added a few names to the portal, like you said there, but I think this guy Butler could be solid for them, right? I like what he can do. 5'10", 170, got good speed. The deep speed is really good, very shifty as well. They need contributors. They need people to throw to. This is a kid that's coming out of high school, obviously not super high ranked, barely top 100 wide receivers, barely top 1,000 overall in the class, but he's a kid that can be impact early on, can be involved in the offense, and a team that needs someone to step up. This guy will get a lot of looks early on. If he can make the opportunities, make some nice grabs, score some touchdowns early on, the looks will keep coming his way. He could definitely be a key contributor for this offense.
Yeah, I think all the signs point to him being a contributor for him this year in some type of regard. Moving to number 9, another team that needs some help, Stanford. They're going to pick up a nice player here, a 4-star Nusai Tamapiau from Utah. This is a guy who's 6'3", 225, good frame right away, brings explosiveness, hits with a lot of heat. He can also come off the edge. And we said the same thing a couple years ago about a guy in David Bailey, Nick, and he's emerged as one of the top players in the conference for them. We were right on the mark with that one. He was an immediate starter from day one, and he's continued to impress for that defense. And I think they have a similar player that here in Nusai. This is a nice building for them. This is a team that's really had, pretty poor talent and depth on the defensive side of the ball, so I expect them to continue to be throwing guys like this kind of to the wolves to be an impact player. He's also a pretty good blitzer in terms of effectiveness as well. That's what stood out on tape for him. So I think Nusai is going to come in, and he's going to find a role with Stanford as a versatile defender there in that front 7 with David Bailey.
Yeah, I think he'd be a really good player. David Bailey's been phenomenal for the Cardinals. They seem to continue to find a way to get the best out of recruits that are highly ranked for Stanford status, but they still find a way to overperform their ranking. The 19th overall linebacker in his class. I love the frame, 6'3", 225, really good. The explosiveness is great. Can really put pressure on the quarterback. Solid off the edge as well. Can play him in a variety of different roles. This is a kid that I think has tons of upside at a program that could use the type of player. Stanford has had a rough bunch of years the last couple of years. They're looking for any sort of thing to stand out, but the linebacking core has been good at times, and David Bailey's always been really good. There's been some solid other showings on the defense, and I think this is a kid that could really be good on that defense, could step up and be a big impact maker early on, should get a ton of playing time with a weak depth chart, limited playmakers, should certainly get some opportunities to go early on in non-conference play and potentially in ACC play as well. This kid could be a really big standout star for the Cardinals here.
Now we move from 2 relatively unknown prospects to one of the highest in his incoming class, Amare Adams, defensive tackle for Clemson. This guy was a 5-star to Florence, 6'4", 285. I'm hearing he's going to be entering spring around 315 pounds, so he certainly added some real mass. He was considered a game wrecker in high school with good strength. He attacks double teams very well with some great effort. Really the motor checks out on him. He has good pursuit with the lateral quickness as well. And those characteristics I just read off, were typically the keys to being a very successful defensive tackle. I think for Clemson, this is a team that has a lot to be, proud of across the board on their roster. But one big area of concern for them last year, and you finally saw it against Texas, was the defensive tackle spot. They got T.J. Parker off the edge. Peter Woods and his versatility is great. But the interior D-line just does not have that much depth, and they certainly lack great playmaking from the interior. Demonte Capehart, I think, will be good. Vic Burley is a former 5-star. Stephon Green as well. They have some nice guys there, but after that, you're really not sure who's going to step up. I think the starting positions on the interior are up for grabs, Nick, and this 5-star seems to be in line for some significant playing time right away.
Should get some playing time, similar to Peter Woods, a highly rated 5-star out of high school. Woods, we're still waiting to see him hit that full level there. I think Adams could certainly be really strong for this team. I think 6'4", 315, like I said, bulking up, could be really good. The number 2 defensive line piece in the class, 7th overall, 5-star, kept him home in the state of South Carolina, won that battle there, a high battle across the board. This is a kid that's got a ton of high upside. Clemson, they like to put younger players in defensive line, run them out and see what they can do. This defensive line that's shown some weakness against the run here. Adams, I think, could be really good against the run. Plug him in early on, see what he can do. I think you roll the dice a little bit. This is a highly rated player. Clemson getting back on the recruiting trail, bringing in a bunch of 5-stars again for the first time in a couple years, it feels like. This is a really good add in this class. This is a guy that can make impacts early on. Don't be surprised to see him out there, in the first couple weeks of the season, getting some solid reps in key situations.
Now I move to number 7, another highly regarded recruit, DJ Pickett, cornerback for LSU out of Tampa, Florida. 6'4", is phenomenal height. The length matched with top speed and the strength he possesses. He really has the instinct to thrive in zone as well. Certainly needs to be able to improve on his run-stopping efforts. That's fine. He's a freshman in college here. Hasn't even taken the field, but it seems like what he can provide day one is going to be emphatic for LSU, a defense that's still looking to improve in a various, different areas, and the secondary is a big one. Rizai Alexander, he departs, and he's going to have to be replaced. I think that they kind of have their starters set in stone. Ashton Stamps, I think he's going to be, a rising star for LSU, and then Mansour Delane's a great transfer from Virginia Tech. But after that, their depth is very, very limited. DJ Pickett's going to carve out a role day one in some regard, Nick. I think he's going to play a lot of snaps as a number 2. If either of these guys struggle, he'll have an opportunity at number 1. He's a lock for this top 10 list. When it comes to the end of the year, he'll certainly be noted.
A really great ad for Brian Kelly, a really solid player to put in his class, a 5-star, 5th overall cornerback, 24th in the nation out of Tampa, Florida. I like the frame a little bit, maybe add a little bit of bulk potentially, but I think 6'4" is good. The speed is phenomenal. The strength is solid. Definitely I'm worried about the run defense potentially, but that's something that you can kind of work on and get the technique on that in the future. This is a very shallow cornerback room with a lot of question marks here. I think him and some other fellow freshmen on the roster will get some starting reps early on, get some impact ability. I think Pickett's a really high upside guy. This is a kid that I think could really step up and be strong for your secondary. He will find much needed play at time. He'll get those reps early on, certainly in non-conference play. Some of the weaker opponents on the schedule will get some good reps. It's game speed, get back up to the level you need to be at. This kid could be really good for LSU.
Now we move to number 6 on our list. We hate to be those guys that go with 3 straight 5-stars. That's just how it is, Nick. These guys are going to get on the field right away, and that includes offensive tackle Michael Fasausi for Oklahoma. A 5-star from Louisville, Texas, 6'5", 295, top-rated offensive tackle. This guy brings to the table impressive explosion. He's considered a physically gifted athlete in all regards, and of course he has a massive wingspan as well. So, kicking him inside the guard doesn't seem very likely. They're going to want to try to keep him at tackle, his natural position. Oklahoma needs help at all positions on the offensive line. We said last year this would be a weakness for him. Some of you fans disagreed with us. We ended up having the last laugh, Nick. They were abysmal up front. They need to get some top talents on the field. He's going to find his way in some regard because nothing they really did in the portal, picking up 2 offensive tackles, that's really all they did. So not much encouragement here for this O-line from Venables. I think Flasasu, as a 5-star, he'll carve a role very early because they need it badly.
Horrible offensive line. When you bring in the number 1 tackle, you better play him early on. You're going to slot him in at left tackle. It feels like that's his best position. I think he'll be really good at left tackle. Like you said, the wingspan there, you don't want to play him at guard. I think he'll be really strong at left tackle. The footwork's good. Physically gifted athlete, 6'5", about 300 pounds. Just incredible wingspan, incredible speed and explosiveness considering that size and weight. I like the footwork. The hands are really solid as well. All stuff you can work on. I think he'll be really good at left tackle. And when you're a bottom-of-the-barrel offensive line like Oklahoma was last year that held them back, why not start start a guy like this? Why not start a kid that's really highly rated, the top offensive tackle in the country in this class, top 10 prospect in this class? You should go out there and play him day one, right? See what he can do, get him on the field, plug him at left tackle, see the type of damage he can cause, and be a really strong key asset for this offensive line. I think he's just a physically gifted athlete that will step up and be really impactful day one in Norman. Got to play him, in my opinion. Got to see what he can do, and I think he'll really find a way to succeed and fly once plugged in that situation.
I moved to number 5, a guy that I really like in terms of upside, Derek Meadows, wide receiver from Las Vegas, Nevada. Came from Bishop Gorman. Heading to the Crimson Tide as a high-end 4-star, 61th ranked recruit, 6'5", 200. That's phenomenal size. He also matches it with body control and athletic ability, strong ability to catch in traffic as well. Think about Alabama's, their roster last year, Nick, in terms of what they had in depth. We were very happy with because all of them had high, billings coming out of high school, and just none of them have really came to the table. And I think that's a big concern for Alabama. It's pretty upsetting. Ryan Williams, of course, was elite last year, but his production dipped toward the back half of the season. Gerby and Bernard at the same time really stepped up, so you certainly have the top 2 established. You're hoping Isaiah Horton will be that third starter, is really going to bring a great impact from Miami. After that, though, you're really unsure what you're going to get. Depth isn't as ideal now at Alabama at wide receiver, and they just need playmakers in this passing game. And I think Meadows, with what he brings to the table in terms of those raw traits, will get on the field at some point. He's also a track and field star in high school. So this is a guy that needs to get on the field. I know you don't really say that a lot with programs like this, Nick, but this is a big area of concern for the Tide, and Meadows could help improve that drastically.
It is an area of concern for Alabama. This wide receiver room lacks the depth that it had in previous years. You're looking at Rico Scott, Jalen Hale, and then Cole Adams as like your depth guy. Those guys, I don't feel super confident. You bring in Meadows here, who, coming from Bishop Gorman, a highly regarded high school out there in Nevada. They really produce a lot of talented players, 6'5", 200 pounds. The size is incredible, really athletic body type. Ryan Williams came in and had an instant impact early on. I don't think Meadows will have the same type of impact that Williams had, but I think you can carve away in this offense. There are some positions, I think the wide receiver X, they put Isaiah Horton out there right now, but I think you can maybe play him out there as well, get him involved in that position. This is a room that needs the depth. The impact will certainly be there. They're going to have a new quarterback under center this year at Alabama, so you want to help out that young quarterback, see what they can do. I think Meadows is a really strong potential prospect that could step up and be involved early on. I don't know if he'll light the world alight, but I think he'll get a lot of catches and be involved in the offense as they try to figure out what they're going to do with this wide receiver room that really feels below average for an Alabama receiving room.
And I don't want to be that guy that holds him hostage due to other people's performances, but guys like Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Hamilton, Emmanuel Henderson, there's plenty of guys here that, again, we're coming out of high school with big expectations, Nick, and they did absolutely nothing for this team. So that makes me a little hesitant to think that he's going to fall victim to the same thing that has happened over the last couple of years. But I certainly want to be talked off that bridge.
Yeah, there certainly are concerns, right? As an Alabama fan, you read off those names there, and I say, damn, what could have been with those guys? And there were more. Jai Hall was another one you could potentially throw in there who, fell off a cliff. A lot of these guys, just Corey Brooks, who, he ended up reviving his career at Louisville, and he had a great season with them. And then Isaiah Bond left, and he was really good for Alabama. He left, and he had a great season in Texas as well. So there seems to be an issue at wide receiver. This is not the machine that pumps out talented first-round picks that it used to be in Tuscaloosa. They seem to have fallen off a little bit since Devontae Smith left. They haven't really been able to produce the type of talented wide receivers that you need to compete in college football. Ryan Williams hopes to be the bringing you back to that sort of era where you can produce tons of talented wide receivers. I was very pleased with Jeremy Bernard last year. Meadows, I want to see what he can do. I think this kid could really step up. I'm curious to see how he plays in spring ball and practice. He could get some good reps with this team early on, could be involved in this offense. Certainly, the non-conference schedule is not very difficult for Alabama, so Meadows could get some reps early on against some of these weaker non-conference opponents before you get into the depths of SEC play. Could be involved in this offense, could be a key difference maker.
Then you move to number 4, Dakorien Moore. I think it certainly could be promoted higher on this list. Top-ranked receiver heading to the Ducks from Duncanville, Texas. This guy has great run after catch. Really stretched the field of his speed. A phenomenal catch radius and hands as well. Has enhanced route running, a good route tree. Of course, working with Keelan Russell, a 5-star heading to Alabama at quarterback, certainly makes things a lot easier for you in high school, Nick. But I think it also prepares you quite well for the next level. And we've seen across the country just this past year what getting true freshmen wide receivers who have high recruiting profiles can do for you. Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams, TJ Moore were the top 4 in last year's class. They were all significant for their respective teams at some point. And of course, Smith consistently throughout the year was impressive for them. They also had another 5-star, Ryan Wingo, who was great for Texas. So You got to get these guys on field immediately, Nick, and it seems to be benefiting those respective teams tremendously. And I think the same thing will be here for Oregon. It's a good receiver room, but it's not like they're absolutely loaded with first-round picks. It's going to cause him to suffer in terms of playing time early on. He's going to get on the field and he'll make an impact just like those other guys did. Love Moore here to Oregon.
I think Moore is a phenomenal player. I was hoping he would find his way to Alabama following his high school quarterback. It didn't quite work out that way. That would have been a really good ad for the Crimson Tide, but this is a receiver that I think going to Oregon really works out for him. 5'11", 182. Great yard after the catch rate. He's really good after the catch, really shifty, really hard to tackle, really good, stretches the field. Love the speed on him, a really good runner. The route tree is phenomenal. High football IQ that will only get better throughout college. This is an elite wide receiver. In this day and age, in the portal day and age, you got to play your elite receivers early on out of fear they may potentially transfer. Got to get them involved in the offense early on, and you bring in a guy like Moore to an Oregon, offensive weapons room that is not phenomenal right now. They're losing, Trayshawn Holden, they're losing Tez Johnson, they're losing some other pieces here, so there's a lot of room to step up. Justice Lowe, I think, will be solid. Evan Stewart, it will be really good for this offense, but I think there's some room for him to step in here, for Moore to be involved in this offense and really be a big difference maker early on. You got to help out Dante Moore at quarterback, who really wants to see what he can do, and can you find a way to make him be a star in this system. This wide receiver room, needs to step up a little bit here, and I think Moore will find some routes early on, find some catches, and be involved in the offense.
And now it's not a lock he'll be elite because the 2023 class on the more negative side of things, a lot of their top guys have not produced. So it's not a guarantee as a 5-star he's going to come in, but the theme this past year was get those guys on field and they're going to make plays, and I think Moore is a phenomenal player, and as long as he's out there getting reps, he's going to make an impact for the Ducks. Number 3, Gideon Davidson, running back for Clemson. This is a big area of weakness following Phil Maffa's departure. Clemson doesn't really have much at running back, and he might be a day one starter, quite frankly, a guy that has great speed, vision, and patience to help set up blocks. Some good feet as well. Best suited to run between the tackles. Seems to be the ideal replacement for Phil Maffa as a bit of an inside bruiser. That's not what either of them really were, but Maffa was a bigger back, so he's going to get that nod from me. And then Davidson, with his knack for running between the tackles, seems like he's going to be possessing a lot of toughness that Clemson's going to need to replace him. So I think he'll be a day one starter for him, Nick, and I think he'll have a pretty respectable impact this year.
I think he'll be the number one running back for this team from day one. I'm going to go out there and say it right now. This Clemson running back room is very shallow, and I think he'll be the number one guy early on. Klubnik needs someone to help him balance out the rushing attack, and this guy has some good high upside. 5'11", 115. The footwork and speed is really solid. The vision is good. I think the field vision is really solid. Football IQ is good. Good at running between the tackles here. Number 5th running back in the class, coming out of Virginia, playing some decent football in that state. You bring him in here, I think he could really be competitive early on. The burst is good. The speed and the field vision are all very high for him. He's kind of benefiting from his circumstances because this Clemson offense, they don't really have anyone else that I trust running the ball right now. Keith Adams is on the roster, but I don't know what he's going to look like this year. Jarvis Green, I'm curious what he's going to look like this year. I think you plug Davison in, see what he can do early on, see if he can get some big reps in key situations, let him be an impact maker early on. This guy will be really solid for this offense. This could be a key player in the Clemson offense.
Now you move to number 2, but of a guy that probably didn't really get talked about at all at the quarterback position, Malik Washington for Maryland, staying in state. This guy's a good intermediate passer, can change up his arm angles, has good scrambling ability, and he had a lot of poise to him as well. 54th overall ranked recruit, and I think he'll make an impact just because he's going to start right away. No real reason not to. Justin Martin transferred in from UCLA. He was there for 2 years as a former 4-star. This guy has good size, right? 6'4", 220. But he really didn't impress when the QB position was a big area of weakness the last 2 years for UCLA. Was not really able to carve out much playing time there. Certainly has me a little bit concerned. I know Ethan Garbers wasn't that bad for UCLA, but I just feel like Martin probably could have put himself in a better position as the younger cat for the Bruins at times to really set himself up to be the future. And even with Garber's departure, Martin opts to go elsewhere. So I kind of think that shows you where he's at in terms of his development. If a guy ranked this high in Washington, maybe he's not that good at all, right? But I think there's only one way to find out. You don't want it to be at another program. So I think Mike Loxley, a guy who has pretty good judgment when it comes to quarterbacks, he's going to try to get this guy in the field as early as possible. This is, for college football junkies like us, Nick, this Maryland QB battle is honestly quite interesting to monitor.
I talked about Davidson saying he really benefited from his situation. I think Washington benefits even more from his situation. Mike Locksley has really found a way to get a lot out of quarterbacks that have not been great over the past couple seasons. Talia Tagovailoa was really a serviceable starter for them that had some good reps during his career. They've fallen off. They've been struggling to figure it out. Now you're bringing a guy, a home state guy, keep him in the state of Maryland, number 5 quarterback, 6'4", 215. I love that a lot, right? I think that's a phenomenal opportunity with the frame, phenomenal body type for a quarterback here. Intermediate passing is really good. The arm angles are solid. I worry about the deep ball certainly, but I think this offense, they can find a way to make this work. Maryland, you're a bottom of the barrel program in the Big Ten. I hate to say it. You're really not going to be competing to win the Big Ten right now. You brought in some decent players. Jaleel Farouk's not a bad wide receiver. Brought in Caleb Webb out of the portal as well. Octavian Smith returns in the slot, who I think had is a solid piece as a senior. This team, they're not going to go out and win a lot of games next year, in my opinion. So why not start Washington, let him get comfortable and continue to develop around him and bring in some good wide receivers out of the portal, bring in some key pieces after that. Go start him, see what he can do. I think this kid can find a way to succeed. This Maryland team might be able to pick off a few wins extra than people expect if Washington plays to, high expectations. Start him early on, see what he can do. I think Justin Martin's not a bad quarterback, but go with Washington, go with the future, and see what you can do.
Now we go to number 1. What do you know? It ends up being the top-ranked recruit having the highest impact. That's just how it is, though, Nick. Number 1 recruits in college football, they just seem to be such, a wide gap between them and number 2. I mean, that's how good number 1 is, and that billing is so important. Jeremiah Smith, they said, would have went number 1 in the draft after just a freshman season. And I believe the people saying that. Bryce Underwood going to Michigan. They made a late surge for him to flip him from LSU. This guy's an elite arm, shows the ability to fire in the tight windows with velocity, shows touch and anticipation across the middle. Pretty good in the intermediate, the deep range. Really improved his scramble ability this past year. Able to make plays on the move as well. Plenty of impressive positives to bring to the table with him. Of course, Mikey Keane's going to be battling for the QB1 job. Nothing against him, right? I think he's a pretty good player, and I like the addition to spice up this QB room. But if you've seen the room last year, Nick, you'll know why he should start. And considering I'm not fully convinced he wants to be a long-time Michigan Wolverine. I know some Michigan fans disagreed with me on that one. This is a guy that should start number 1 for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, he gives you the best chance to win. And I like rolling guys out who are, high-build recruits at quarterback. Gives them opportunity to build, to fully maximize their potential. At some point, he'll get on the field, and he'll be the full-time starter. He's not going to look back.
This guy's the number 1 recruit in the class for a reason. We've seen some incredible number 1 recruits go in and make big impacts. Jadeveon Clowney is one you think of at South Carolina. He made instant impacts immediately. When you look at quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence made instant impacts at Clemson, was absolutely phenomenal for them. Lived up to the billing and was just really, really strong for them early on. Bryce Young had to sit for a little bit, but he became a star for Alabama when he eventually got on the field. I know that Lawrence started immediately, so I think that's what you want to see out of Underwood. Michigan, they have to start him, right? There's no reason not to, right? This is a quarterback room that's a complete disaster right now. If this team wants to be a serious competitive team in the Big Ten, you got to start Bryce Underwood immediately. You paid him all this money not to sit on the bench and twiddle his thumbs. He's going to go play. He's going to go out there and play, and I think he can really succeed. 6'3", 205, just a phenomenally accurate quarterback, so good at throwing in tight windows, really good across the middle, high football IQ that's only going to get better, elite arm, all of the above. This guy's the number 1 player in the class for a reason. You flipped him late in the cycle. You threw all the money at him to start him. Go out there, let him play, let him go out there, see what he can do, see what this kid can do, unleash the type of talent. I worry about the Michigan receiver room, certainly, and we've talked about that at length this offseason. But I think Underwood will have a phenomenal season and will prove that he was the number 1 recruit in the class for a reason.
Yeah, the theme you alluded to there with those former players is at some point they all ended up being massive. Yes, Bryce Young waited a year when he got on the field, set records and won the Heisman. So, the number 1 recruit is a lot to live up to. Arch Manning was a former one. He's going to get on the field this year. He should have a high impact as well. Again, being number 1 compared to number 2, Nick, just seems to be such a different stratosphere. And I think that's what you're hoping here with Bryce Underwood to keep Michigan in contention for an Natty.
Yeah, I think so. You think you have to get this guy out here and see what he can do, a former number 1 recruit that has been really good. There's more that you could talk about. Travis Hunter, he had an incredible impact at multiple levels. You talk about Jeremiah Smith, who was really good. There's a bunch of other key players that were really solid. Justin Fields eventually had a lot to do with his sort of ability. Myles Garrett was phenomenal at A&M. So these are guys that are really highly touted for a reason. These are incredible prospects that are coming into college football for a reason with the high billing. Roll him out there, see what he can do. It worked for Trevor Lawrence. I think it worked for Bryce Underwood. And I'm not saying Michigan will win a national championship, but it worked for Trevor Lawrence. There were people questioning whether or not Lawrence should start early in his career. They started him, they got results immediately. They turned themselves into a dynasty overnight. Bryce Underwood could potentially have a great impact at Michigan, could really develop something special up there.
I think you'll see a similar situation to that at Clemson. Remember, Kelly Bryant started the first couple weeks. Lawrence takes over. Same thing will happen here. Keene will start a little bit. Underwood will be ready to go, and he'll give them higher upside. So I think that's how I'll see that playing out. It's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.